I personally think that people should be in the office more.
I think there are a lot of studies on it showing productivity is better. Humans are, we are social creatures, and we collaborate and do better work when we're together. And we want a vibrant city, don't we? We want that. That's part of the problem. Is there's no one in the city.
We want people back in the city.
Waking up and staying in your PJs or your unicorn onesie until 11 a.m. is not.
That is not productive.
It's not productive.
No.
Welcome to the LoweDown. I'm here with Adam, my good friend, business partner, and fellow real estate agent, and we're here to talk about Wellington's woes and really go deep on that. Adam, what do you think about? Obviously, we just had the Crown Observer. It's been announced that the Crown Observer is going to be put in place to keep an eye on our dysfunctional council.
Yeah, as of the day we're recording here, that was yesterday. Shivers. That's a big deal. But certainly there's a lot of negative conversation out there at the moment about around our beloved city, isn't there? I mean we're Wellingtonians, right? We've seen.
Born and bred.
I was not born here. I was born in Scotland, but I moved here when my parents moved here when I was 4. Spent 7 years over in London. 1 year in the Wairarapa, otherwise Wellingtonian. Yeah,
me too. Born in Johnsonville, so and then to Miramar at 4. So been in Wellington. I'm very proud of the city. Love it.
Yeah, great city.
Just as an anecdote, and this is just an anecdote, but it seems to have been confirmed actually even by Tori Whanau and some of her comments in the recent articles in the paper. But I heard anecdotally that the council right now is so dysfunctional that they cannot agree on just about anything. They're very positional. They don't have enough money to complete any of the things they want to do. Yet everybody's holding on by the skin, by their teeth to every last thing that they all individually want, and there's no cohesion.
So there's no agreement around what to cut, because this is a basic equation. You got money in and you got money out, and you can't get something for nothing. No. And so you got to balance the books, unless you just borrow ad infinitum, which also is a train wreck slowly coming, And so you can't afford everything. So unless you're going to raise a bunch of money, and that's what's been happening with 21% increases in our rates. So you would think we can now afford a whole lot more, and yet it's just not nearly enough, and they have to cut something and they can't agree what to cut.
But it really sounds like the dysfunction and disagreement has gotten to a fever pitch internally in the council, and I think obviously that step the government's doing is a good one. Even Tori Whanau was quoted in the online paper article I read saying this might be a good thing because then there will be someone watching, which is fascinating for the.
We behave better when we're trying to impress someone.
That's right. So this is it's really quite a historic thing that's happening in front of us right now, and of course it makes me realise. Obviously the council can't be blamed for all of Wellington's woes. The timing, the timing of what's going on. You've got, obviously,
there's only so much. So it's only so good you can make a bad situation.
Yes, exactly right. But the main point is. When Wellington's on its knees, because we really are. I've never seen it in my 45 years on this planet living in Wellington. I've never seen it as bad as this. I can't remember a time that was this bad.
This bad in terms of the public narrative?
Well, in terms of the way that, in terms of the, that's a great question. In terms of the feel of the city.
Yes.
The negativity, the mood, how people, the things people are saying, and also. It's not, obviously these things they loom larger in your mind when everything's negative, but just walking down the street, you've got empty shops everywhere, you've got, people that are, less fortunate that are living on the streets, which, have huge empathy for that, but the feel in the city overall is just not good right now. And the point I'm going to make about that is, that's when you need a really solid leadership.
Yes.
That's when that comes into its own as someone, who can actually stand on the bow of the ship and say, there's the storm, we're rowing into it. Yeah, and we're going to come out the other side. And have direction on what we need and bring all the people up and with them to get through that storm. That's what's required.
Yeah, which means clear focus, clear direction. It means making the tough calls about we're not going to do these things. We are going to do these things, and
so clearly we don't have that, right? So it's becoming clearer and clearer to me that while there is
holding on to their personal little pet favourites. or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of clearly a lot of ideology and a lot of dysfunction and a lot of relationship breakdown and things going on, and that needs to be cleaned up because the reality is you can only blame things on high interest rates, bad economy, COVID, all this stuff for so long. At some point, it's like, no, that someone is steering the walker in the wrong direction. And it really feels like that is what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, hopefully under this, stewardship, it will take a turn for the better because, boy, we need it, and that will make a real difference. One thing I suppose one good thing that might come out of all of this is typically local body elections, they've been the voting, the voter turnout rate, very low. I bet the next time it's going to be pretty damn high compared to historical norms.
I hope so.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the main things people have been talking about for years about Wellington is the broken pipes.
Yep. Somewhere near a $10 billion problem, I understand.
10 billion.
I understand something like that. I mean, and all estimates will be wrong, obviously. Even if I read
whatever the number is, it's a big number.
I mean, certainly I saw the.
It's not glamorous though, is it? Fixing pipes.
Yeah, I saw Wellington Water talking about needing $1 billion a year. Can't remember how long it was for, but at least $1 billion a year to fix it. And so this is a major. There's no way that the Wellington City Council is going to be able to do that on its own. I mean, that's going to need government intervention to get that up and running quickly.
And something like 44% of water in Wellington is wasted through leaks.
That's an unbelievable number, isn't it? In Upper Hutt, it was 52%, I believe.
Right.
More than half of the water is actually just disappearing into the earth.
This is insane.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
But you can understand why councils, and it's not just the recent council. It's not just Tory and her crew. This has been going on for decades. Decades.
Yeah.
You can understand why people would be tempted to just postpone repairing the pipes again and postpone them again and postpone them again because it's not glamorous.
No.
I mean, it doesn't make headlines.
Yeah. 800 kilometres of piping nearing the end of its life now, right? And so no previous. And this is one of the problems with the political cycle, isn't it? Is you can't. It's difficult to get to make big capital investments for 50 years down or 30 years down the track. Yeah. So they just don't.
When you've got a 3-year election cycle.
Yeah, exactly. So the maintenance doesn't happen, and we can see that in other areas of.
But it takes an emergency like what we've got to glamorise the repair of water pipes to actually make it happen, because never before in history, in Wellington's history, would a local politician have ever been able to stand up and say, "Guess what, folks? I fixed the pipes."
Yes.
But that person will now be a hero.
Yes.
Never before has so much hero status been available by fixing the pipes.
Yes. Yes. So what do you? I mean, the pipes is one thing, and obviously there's no way we're going to be able to solve that today. You and I.
No.
That's a very difficult one. But an obvious. Interesting thing is you think about efficiency and how inefficient government and council can be. I mean, one example of that, for example, is the new music centre in where the town hall is now. I'm a big fan of character. I believe in retaining character. I love Wellington's character. It's I'm looking out the window behind you there, and I can see all these beautiful villas in Mount Victoria. And
it is part of our heritage.
It is part of Wellington,
fabric
right?
of society.
But there's a point where you say, there's got to be an economic point where you say
not at any
not
cost.
Worth it. Not at any cost, right?
Not at any cost.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so we look at that project. It's such a classic case study for inefficient government or council, use of money, right? Because we go, it was meant to cost 40 million. Now 40 million, beautiful music centre, brand new. I believe it was I don't know the finer details, but I believe that the large portion, if not all of that, was in the earthquake. Strengthening, getting the building.
Well, that's the main headline, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the main headline. That's why this project is happening.
Yes.
Because the building needs strengthening.
Yes.
According to these council rules.
Yes.
Which are made up.
Yes. They're arbitrary. Everything
is made up.
Yes. Exactly. Well, everything, once you go beyond physics, once you go beyond,
we should do a podcast on physics. I love it.
That's right. Everything's arbitrary, right? Once you go beyond the laws of physics. But the point being that, you go from 40 million to 80 million to 180 million. Some point along
400.
To 400, which I believe it is.
400 million.
Yeah. So at some point along the line, if you've sunk, let's just say you've actually sunk $180 million in there, and someone comes to you and says you need another $180 million to finish it. at some point you actually just say no. I mean, 100. The past doesn't matter. The past is from learning from, right? Only thing that matters is today going forward.
Yeah.
Because that money is sunk.
The money's
can't
gone.
get it back.
The money's gone.
But if 180, if you wouldn't have, if you go back to the start of that entire project, if you wouldn't have spent $180 million on it to start with, you shouldn't spend another $180 million just because you've got to that $180 million point.
The problem is, so that basically points to the fact that we're so bad at predicting the cost of these things is really damaging. So damaging, isn't it? But coming back to the 400 million, so we've got about 400,000 people in Wellington region. 400 million is $1,000 for every man, woman, child, pensioner. Doesn't matter how old, doesn't matter what colour, how big, small, indifferent, whatever you are. $1,000. So if your average household of 3 people, say, that's $3,000 per household. Now, if I had the time and I went down the road and I said to 100 people, listen, I've got a deal for you. I will deliver for you a lower risk of getting injured if you're at the Wellington Town Hall during an earthquake. And while you're there, it'll be a more enjoyable experience because you've got this music centre, so on. And all you have to pay for that privilege is $1,000 for each person in your household. Who's going to take me up on that offer?
No one.
Nobody.
No one. Yeah.
Nobody's going to.
It really puts
so there comes a point where it's just like, that. I'm sorry, folks. That is not worth it. Tear it down.
Yeah. I agree. And 400 million would pay for a few pipes, quite a few pipes.
Couple of pipes.
Yeah, that's right.
So on the topic of earthquake strengthening, I mean, that is also a big. How much capital is that sucking out of the Wellington economy? I mean, we're talking about Wellington, and it's the same for nationwide. I don't know if it's as extreme everywhere else as it is in Wellington. It seems to be an enormous big deal here. But how much resource is that sucking out of the economy, and is that worth it? I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that whole notion of earthquake strengthening?
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on what you value, like everything, because everything is arbitrary, right? So it comes down to what you care about, I think, and obviously, people's safety is important. So I understand that, and I think that that it's a good, after Christchurch, I think made this significantly more visible to people, didn't it? The risk that we're all in, but at the same time, we've seen that earthquakes don't show that the engineering and the risk isn't actually, that doesn't correlate perfectly with the engineer's idea of which buildings are risky, does it?
No.
And the variables are so great. So
our understanding of how to actually preserve life, it appears it's poor. Because we get these buildings that are apparently 100% NBS.
And get ruined. Yeah.
Do they have a higher rate of falling apart than the ones that are earthquake prone? Yeah,
I mean, and again, it's not an area that I know lots about, so I don't want to profess to be an expert in this area in any way, shape, or form.
For sure.
But I do.
It's a question, though.
I do question. I do think it's a good question to ask. Right? We might not have the answers, but I think a good question to ask is should we just allow people to maintain the buildings that they've got in the state that they're in, like we always did before, and nothing happened, and then the reality is maybe there could be a system. Just throw an idea out there where you have to display what it is, so everyone knows what their own personal risk is in working or walking into a building.
That system is in place in of sorts, because if it's earthquake prone or it's likely earthquake prone under 34%, then you have to put the yellow sticker on it. And
because I mean the other side to this too, that people may not be obvious to people, but this is costing all of us, isn't it?
That's right.
I mean you look at our rates,
and there's a limit to how much it's worth, isn't there? I mean there's a limit to everything. To the value of anything. It's not a bottomless pit, and you just don't just continue to spend money on something ad infinitum. I mean, you'll put the whole city under. But man, it's a conundrum. It's a big problem.
So rates and insurance. I mean, obviously, council rates have gone up. There's a misconception. I think that an interesting point I find about that when I'm talking to people is people assume when their RV goes up,
Yes.
that automatically their rates are going to go up.
Yeah.
And of course, you and I know that's not true, right? The rates is one big number. It's one big number for the year that they have.
The rates bill.
Sorry, the total amount of the rates bill is one big number that they then
the
divide.
entire budget of the council
is divided across all of the properties based on their rateable values, right? But it's the relativity between your property in terms of your change in rates.
Yep.
If your rateable value goes up relative to the other properties in your area through some sort of algorithm, you will pay more rates.
That's right.
But if it goes up the same proportion as everyone else, you will pay the same proportion. Right?
If all of a sudden everyone's rateable values doubled,
no one pays any more
in the same budgetary year of the council, your rates will stay the same.
Yeah. Now, people get that wrong. So I find that kind of interesting. But the other thing is, of course, that doesn't mean our rates aren't going up. Or we had 21% or 20% increase?
21, I think.
21% increase this year.
But that's not a function of the rateable values going up, because they've stayed the same.
Yeah,
that's a function of the council's budget.
Yes,
going up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So, but look, at the end of the day, bottom line is the rates have been going up a lot. And
this is
I haven't fact checked. This is a lot of stuff I haven't fact checked lately. But someone mentioned something like it's predicted to go up another tens of percent, 30%, 40% or something in the next kind of 5 years or so. And just like the ability to predict how much the town hall is going to cost, that could well be wrong. So rates are not on a good trajectory at the moment.
And we already see
the households believe they're getting good value. I don't think so.
No, well, certainly not right now, right? I mean, but if we look at insurance costs on top of that, and insurance costs in Wellington, these are all interrelated.
I believe insurance costs have been going up more than rates. As a proportion.
Yeah. And so we see, obviously, that affects the apartment market in a major way because it's more visible, isn't it? In your body corporate fees.
Well, I think the commercial buildings, which includes the larger unit titled apartment blocks and stuff, the insurers were onto those risks faster than they covered off the smaller risks that are the freestanding homes and that sort of thing. So those buildings, the insurance levies for those, the insurance premiums for those went up. They started rising much earlier than normal households. Households have now been catching up, but there's been a big delay. But yes, the buildings were sort of earlier. Yep.
So this has got to, this is a part of the inflation that we're all dealing with at the moment that is playing a role in the market. Obviously, it will, to some degree, will mean that people won't buy as expensive a house, or they'll be looking at things like their outgoings and they'll be looking at what they can afford. So it plays some sort of role there, but also
as well as the whole risk-based insurance model now. Where if you are in a riskier place, whether it be a floodplain or coastal property, that sort of thing, those insurance risks are higher, at least in the views of the insurers with global warming and all that stuff. And so those premiums are going up more than the locations that the insurers believe are safer, lower risk. Yeah. I mean, I haven't fact checked this either, but I have heard just anecdotally that some of the insurers now are making big profits again. Now, it will be the popular point of view about that will be how terrible that is, because we're paying these massive premiums. Therefore, it's terrible that the insurers are making these massive profits. I see the other view, which is that's great news. If insurers are making big profits again, if they are rebuilding their balance sheet, so they've got these, full to bursting treasure chests, just like bullion, just like overflowing in these treasure chests, right? That they'll be feeling safer again. Their risk of, their financial risk is much lower, and they start getting greedy about grabbing market share. So perhaps they can start easing off.
Get more competitive.
Yeah, get more competitive and start easing off on the premium. So if they're making a ton of money again, maybe that will pave the way for insurance premiums to come down. Now, of course, that won't happen unless the reinsurers start to go easy on the premiums, and the reinsurers are feeling confident and safe, because the reinsurers, of course, are really big companies with huge balance sheets. A lot of them in Europe and so on.
One of the problems I've seen is that they just don't seem to want any risk in Wellington.
No.
And so a lot of them have just said, we won't write any new business in Wellington, and it gets better. And sometimes that's why, as you and I know, getting people to get insurance through the same insurer as the current owner is often the best way in Wellington because, they've already got that risk, so they're not adding any more Wellington
well,
risk.
there's a general agreement that if they're currently carrying the risk, then they will continue to carry the risk. Although if there's an opportunity to get out of it,
reset the premium. or reset the premium.
Or get out of it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they certainly, the buyer has to sort of apply as if it's a brand new application.
Yes.
It's not just taking over the insurance.
Yeah. So these are all tough issues, and they're all issues specific to Wellington that we're dealing with. And there's, again, no easy answer. So topical one, cycle lanes. Adam, what's your position on cycle lanes?
Cycle lanes is the topic that the Wellingtonians seem to love to hate.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, it was interesting. I did see a quote from our beloved Tory recently that quoting some number that said, look, we're spending such an infinitesimally small amount of money on cycle lanes. I can't remember the number. It was like 1% or 2% of the budget or something like that. Very small number.
1 or 2%. That's huge. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the other point of view, isn't it? That's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that cycle lanes. That is a hot topic at the moment. And again, I could be vilified for my point of view here, but I can sort of understand why. There's a bunch of people who want cycle lanes, and they want a lot of people taking, alternative forms of transport, and these are all, good goals to have. No one can disagree with that. But it does upset me if we're driving down Cambridge Terrace, and there's 3 lanes, one dedicated to buses, one dedicated to cycles, to bikes, and one for cars. And I can tell you there's one lane that's very full.
Yes.
And the other 2 lanes are empty.
Yes. I see that too. I see that too. And I think it's really affected the eastern suburbs, coming out from Seatoun to Wellington or from Miramata to the city. I believe that has really had a massive impact on that traffic.
Right.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm a as you know, I'm a mountain biker for better or worse because I keep injuring myself, but I love cycling. And so I'm a big fan, and I love the idea of getting around on a bike, and I think it's fantastic. But I do question whether Wellington's the right city for that. We've got 100-kilometre-hour, gusts in through spring, and other times it's it's not known for its weather. It's hilly. Obviously, e-bikes might take some of the sting out of the hills, but it just doesn't really feel like the most cyclable city in the world to me. And so I do question. And again, we know how bad the traffic is, in Wellington, and forecast to get a lot worse. We have to spend huge money on infrastructure to try and sort that out.
The alternative view, of course, is that perhaps is a really strong argument for why we should have the cycle lanes to get people out of the cars and reduce.
But they have to want to.
Well, you inflict enough pain on them, they'll want to.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But I just don't know. I don't know about that. I really don't know. I mean, again, it's a huge question in my mind because I see 4 or 5 or 6 people using the cycleway, and I see 400 people stuck in traffic down Cambridge Terrace. So again, I don't have the answer. It's a fascinating topic, and I am a little bit conflicted. But I think on balance, I think it's a net negative. The cycle lanes is my guess. But I'm open-minded to being wrong about that. But because I think it's only a small portion.
Time. It'll take a long time for people's behaviour to change. So maybe in 10 years' time, we'll look back and go, well, that was a great move. But I think the thing is that you and I don't know. We have a very imperfect view of what the future holds. And so perhaps we could just do it a little slower and test it a bit more and see how popular it becomes. But then again, maybe it requires the whole network effect for it to be really valuable across the city. I just don't know. What's even more annoying is when you see the cycle lane there and the cyclist is on the road with the traffic.
Yes.
Because the cycle lane, for whatever reason, is I don't know,
yes.
got too many potholes.
Yes, or cycling on the footpath. Yeah, that's right.
The other thing that I just question whether it's been really factored in properly into the whole modelling of the cost of these things is a lot of these cycle lanes, they're constructed using soft materials or materials that can be damaged a lot more easily than a curb or a hard surface, right? The bits of plastic that are screwed into the road and the whatever those little bollard things, those flexible bollards, they get damaged easily. To maintain these things, it just will require a constant program of maintenance, and it's just more cost adding up that needs to be spent every year.
So what do you think? I mean, interesting thing is Cory Place, right? So Cory Place is about to undergo massive change. They're
the
Golden Mile. They're going to redo the whole thing, and that's going to cause major roadworks, major interruption for businesses. Clearly, right now I feel like if I wander down there, I feel pretty depressed. My shoes it's sticky, the ground from years and years and years of layers of God knows what from all the bars and the punters along there, and it's pretty disgusting.
Right.
And then of course you've got we have real problems with homeless people, which very, very sad to see and have huge empathy for. But they've a lot of them making that their home now, that strip, and of course that's going to cause a massive disruption right at the time. So I'll just give you my view is that something needs to be done. The place needs a massive upgrade. It's really important.
That's not going to come. That's never going to come without some major inconvenience.
Yes, exactly. And so, but I guess the question is the timing. Do you think it's fair on the local businesses down there right at the time when no one's in town? We've got obviously problems with the leadership and the council. We've got work from home, which is another one. And I don't know about your view, but my view is that the first thing the government should do right now is mandate government workers back to work. It's not going to be a popular opinion amongst government workers. I know that, and I respect that. But
I agree with you. Not necessarily that they should mandate it, but I personally think that people should be in the office more. We're social creatures, right? We collaborate better together. With productivity. I think there are a lot of studies on it showing productivity is better. Humans are, we are social creatures, and we collaborate and do better work when we're together. And we want a vibrant city, don't we? We want that. That's part of the problem. Is there's no one in the city. We want people back in the city, and you can find evidence for any point of view that you have, and there'll be plenty of evidence out there that supports the point of view being. People are more productive when they're at home. Okay, I don't believe it. At least for a period, maybe for a bit of that, it helps with productivity, and it's good to allow that flexibility and so on. But I think it's gone way too far. It went way too far as a result of COVID, which put people's focus way more on lifestyle rather than working in town, right, in the office. So people wanted to beautify their properties, and they wanted to be in the garden, and all of a sudden they could do that, or because of COVID. But at the same time, it was also tolerated way more than would ordinarily have been the case, I think, because of the fact that the labour market was so strong, and workers had more leverage in the labour market than the bosses did. And the bosses, I think, to a certain degree, have been pretending that they're all for working from home, whereas I think to a certain degree they've just been, they don't like it, but they've been biting their lip because it's the politically correct thing to do. And now that the labour market's gone the other direction a bit, I think some of the the employers out there will be putting more pressure on their staff to come back to the office.
Waking up and staying in your PJs or your unicorn onesie until 11 a.m. is not
that is not productive.
It's not productive.
No.
No.
Have you got a unicorn onesie, Craig? I got a Batman onesie. Not really.
So we both agree it needs to be done. It's unfortunate for the businesses.
Well, I think it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah. It's happening regardless, right? Yeah. It's happening regardless. They're going to push forward with it. Yeah. So I feel for the businesses down there. I really do. I think a lot of them are going to struggle to survive. For me, it just feels like the timing isn't quite right. It feels like it just sucks that it's happening right now.
Definitely an argument for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. But look, Wellington is going to come back though, right?
Yes.
It might seem we're in the ashes, but the phoenix will rise.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
I mentioned we hadn't been as bad in my lifetime, but someone said to me recently in the late 80s, and of course I was I was 10 years old then, but so perhaps wasn't as aware of all the issues as you will be today, But I mean, the reality is that there are cycles that these things go through. This is a deep one. It's a bad one. Sometimes you swim with the tide. Sometimes you swim against it. We're swimming against the tide right now. But you and I know, as sure as the sun comes up, all these variables are going to change. Times will be great.
That's right.
And we're passionate about Wellington, right? We love Wellington.
I mean, fundamentally, it's a great city. It's having a bad time at the moment, but there's no question in my mind it will come back. It's just a question of when and how quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice to chat, Adam.
Awesome.
That was LoweDown. Thanks very much for listening, and like and subscribe. We're back again next week, and we'll do it one more time.
See you next time.